Let's get this thing going. Welcome to Real Talk, where we talk with everyday leaders who have great things to say about everyday leadership situations. And today is kind of a special one because I have the wonderful privilege of talking with someone who is actually in my inner circle and has been for 20 years or more. So Molly Davis is not a stranger. She's a friend, a colleague, a partner, a team member at Learning Point, and she is an author and a leadership coach. She does amazing work. I've seen her in action. She's an advisor to me and an advisor to others. And so we are just going to have a very informal, unstructured conversation about something that really is very relevant today, which is transformation. So Molly, how are you doing?
Great, Mark. This is really fun. I've been looking forward to this since we first started talking about it. So it's great. It's great to see you in this context. It's good. Hey, you're wearing your municipal sweatshirt.
I am, and I love it. It's a little warm where I am down here in southern Utah today, but I thought I'd wear it as well. You've got yours on as well. Municipal's becoming the official outfitter of Learning Point Group, and we have a common friend, David Berry. He, along with several others, Molly, that you have invited to do these Real Talk sessions with us. So that's great. Molly, can you just take a few minutes for those that don't know who you are? Talk a little bit about your history, your time at Nordstrom, where you live now. I think is very intriguing to me. I wish I lived where you live at the base of Mount Adams, and who you're married to. Anything you want to share with us so we can get to know you a little bit. Okay.
Well, I'll start with that last part because that's really cool.
Okay.
Adams, we're in a tiny little rural town of Glenwood, Washington. And we've lived here now for about 12 years, built our home, and we just love it here. It's just so beautiful. And at this particular time in history, it's pretty great to live in a place where we have this surrounded by this beauty. I'm married to a volcanologist, a guy who studies volcanoes, Tom Pearson, you know Tom. And so it is pretty interesting to go through life with a geologist and to be able to live in this part of the country. So yeah, my history in terms of work background is really kind of eclectic and an odd way that I got to this wonderful work I get to do with you. So when I graduated from school, I graduated in education knowing that I would never want to teach children. Love children, didn't want to teach them. So I ended up going to work for Nordstrom as just a stopgap. I needed a job, went to work for Nordstrom, and kind of fell in love with the work. I was a buyer and had the opportunity to manage and lead teams as large as like 75, and just got, I think, a lot of training from a wonderful, high-quality organization that values a lot of what we talk about now at Learning Point: customer service, excellence, people being given the freedom to make good decisions. I can still remember at Nordstrom, their number one rule in their employee handbook was use your best judgment. That was rule number one. Rule number two was, when in doubt, use your best judgment. They really, really look for individuals to make good decisions. And somewhere along the way, I ended up in human resources and training. And I thought, okay, this is a chance to, one, use my education, but I fell in love with the process of working with people and helping them grow and discover how to become better versions of themselves. And just about then, I got married and moved to Vancouver, Washington, was the human resources manager, and I ran into a mutual friend, Marla, I believe, who invited me. And at that networking event, she said, you should meet my friend, Mark Christensen. So I don't know how I did, but I reached out, and I think you invited me to come to one of your classes, and I did. And we like to joke about this because you gave me a discount. And I paid $24 to come and observe. So
I guess you can call it a discount. The way we remember it now is I charged you $25. What a return I've gotten off that investment that you made over the years. Yeah.
And it just went from there. You invited me to come and do a little bit more observing. And then you invited me to, why don't we come co-facilitate this? And it has just become this remarkable, just wonderful career to be able to work together and grow our company. And I've just so loved the opportunity to use my gifts and to, you've been a colleague and a friend, but also really a mentor. I've learned a lot from you as well. And so
you've been to Brazil, you've been to Germany for Learning Point, you've done work with some amazing client organizations that we've had. And I remember when you and I found ourselves down in Florida at, I think it was it Amelia Island, I think is the name of the resort. And we got matched up. We ended up golfing. Neither one of us are golfers, but we ended up golfing with a VP from J.C. Penney and a VP from the aerospace industry. And man, I whenever I golf, it is a mess, right? But we managed to get through that without any major
we made it through
embarrassments. I didn't lose any of my golf balls even, so that was good. So we've had some great times together, and I think, we're going to be talking about transformation on here today. And I remember when you really needed to step it up at Learning Point, you really kind of kicked into gear because Learning Point needed you. At the time, kind of back around 2000, 2001, we had a partner who was wonderful, Regine Rosado. She did great things for the organization. She was so loved by her clients and such an important part of Learning Point. And she was in a horrible car accident. You remember this, Molly, you know this. And so she survived, but she had head trauma. So she was never able after that to really work. She didn't have the energy to do it anymore. And so she left a major, major void at Learning Point. We were forced into transformation. We were so comfortable with what she did. And then we just didn't have that blessing at Learning Point anymore. And it was shortly after that you started to kind of fill that void. You provided the magic that Regine used to provide, and you've been doing it ever since. So I think you actually more than 20 years, right? That you've been late 90s.
And that's a really interesting example of transformation. And I think how we arrived at this topic when we were talking about having this conversation, we don't often in these real talk sessions talk specifically about the current situation in the world, COVID and the political environment and all the things that we're dealing with right now. And yet there is such opportunity for learning right now. This is a really unique time. And so taking advantage of the idea of transformation and what that really means. And so taking that and looking at your example with Regine, that was this opportunity for Learning Point to transform. And there was no choice.
No choice.
It was an opportunity for me to transform and really step it up. But also, when we look back at Regine was a powerhouse and a force. And she, in her work, knew how to do it. She really accessed parts of herself intellectually, emotionally, and yet there was a part of her that she maybe hadn't tapped into. And when she had this car accident, all of a sudden she had this opportunity to tap into a part of her heart that she really hadn't accessed before. Mm-hmm. That to me really speaks to the power of transformation. There's a concept that I wanted to tie with this, and it's the idea of something that I like to call a threshold moment. And a threshold moment is this place where we find ourselves at the end of what has been and the beginning of what could be, and there's this threshold that bridges the gap. And sometimes those thresholds are calling us out into the world and making necessary changes and new work and embarking on new endeavors. And other times the threshold is calling us to look inward and look at changes that we need to make internally. And so when we come to this threshold, it's always the choice to step over that threshold and take the invitation or not. And it's a game changer. And it's a game changer if we do step over the gap, and it's a game changer if we don't. And so as I think about transformation, I'm always drawn to the work of somebody I've really come to respect. His name is Father Richard Rohr, and he's a Franciscan priest, teacher, author, and the founder of something called the Center for Action and Contemplation in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And he presents this model for transformation. And so he suggests that we think of 3 boxes: order, disorder, reorder. 3 boxes: order, disorder, reorder. And he said the path to transformation, any kind of transformation, whether we're talking about an organization or a work team or a government or the Seattle Seahawks, a family, a relationship, even our own hearts, the only path to transformation is through all 3 steps. And most of us don't like the idea of disorder. We really cling to, our how things have been. And he is very fond of saying there is no nonstop flight from order to reorder. We always have to go through that messy second box. And there's good news to disorder, and that's that disorder is always this opportunity to put life back together differently in ways that better reflect who we are, what we care about, our values, meeting challenges that have presented themselves. And the not so good news is that disorder always, always upsets our very carefully packed apple carts. And that right now in the world is true, I think, of every person on the planet to one degree or another. The major apple carts have been upset. And so there's this invitation in this time that we have to look and imagine ourselves, our organizations, our relationships, our world, our political system differently, and then to work towards that. And right now, I think the invitation for us is to stay in it, not try to avoid it and get out of it.
Yeah, thank you. I completely agree with that. I love that description of the order, disorder, order. It reminds me of Kurt Lewin, one of the first change theorists, talked about organizational change, mostly societal change, group change. And he described it as freezing, unfreezing, freezing. I think the same concept. But the unfreeze and the disorder you talk about, the disorder can be messy, and it happens. I mean, there's the community, the societal level, there's the organizational level, there's the work group team level, and then there's the individual level. And those boxes apply to all of those different levels, don't they?
Absolutely.
I was just going to say, COVID is just this wonderful, beautiful laboratory for all of it, right?
And I think there's a temptation. I mean, I know this is true for me. There really is a temptation to go, when is this going to be over? I can't wait till it's over. And how can I distract myself until it's over? And, we spend a fair amount of time, I do individually, Tom and I do, and if I'm working with clients, and we do with our company, we talk about on the other side of this, we want to come out better.
Right.
Better and more prepared for the world that's on the other side, because the world on the other side is going to look different in every area. What do we need to be doing now so that we are ready for that? And yeah.
Yeah, I think the vision, working on the vision of what that is going to look like and feel like is so important. It's important work for us to be doing right now, so that we can navigate through the disorder and the mess and actually realize, that vision and what we want things to look like for us and be like for us when we emerge from, the heavy amount of disorder that we're in right now. I think a vision is the next best thing to tangibility, right? It brings tangibility to the future, which is unknown, it's uncertain. the more we talk about it, the more we get it to flow through our veins, and we get our people to talk about it, they can grasp onto that. And like we talk about the wing walker at Learning Point a lot, the rule of a wing walker out on the biplane. Rule number one is know what you're going to grasp onto over here before you let go over here. People aren't going to let go of what they're used to until they have something tangible. Well, what could be tangible about the future? We don't know. That's what vision can do, right? And again, it can do it at the team level, the organization level, but also at the individual level. I mean, careers have been disrupted, livelihoods have been disrupted, and I loved how you mentioned it. I don't know if you use this word, but it's almost like, in a way, this could be a blessing. It's a catalyst. I know it has been for us in our personal lives, for Lisa and me, and for our business. We've completely changed the way we do business, and I'm kind of excited about the changes that we've made. I don't know if we would have made them had this thing not come along, right? So I don't want that to sound too rose-colored glasses like, but I think there's some truth to that.
I think there is. I have my favorite coffee cup that is both and. It's a blessing and it's really a challenge. And
yeah.
I think it's always important to say, at least it is for me, as we go through this, I know that I am not having to face going through COVID in the really disastrous ways that some people are. I'm in a much more secure situation than many, many people. And so as we talk about this, some of the things that we have the opportunity to talk about and think about, I always want to say, I know there are people out there that all they can do is survive.
Yeah.
Part of our job in terms of transformation is for those of us who have a little more margin for thought and creativity and bringing good work to the world. Part of our job now is to do some of the heavier lifting on imagining a better world and helping to bring that about.
Yeah, absolutely. I wanted to share just an experience or something that I've been able to observe a little bit from the sidelines, but I'm connected with an organization that's based in Southern California, and I've been associated with them for some time, enough that I'm on their email list. So anytime any of their management team sends out an email in that organization, then I get that email, right? From the CEO down to frontline leaders and so forth. And they're a global organization, but like many organizations, this pandemic hit them hard, right? And their CEO became the new CEO, I believe in January or December. So wonderful. He's brand new to the job, and then he has this thing to deal with. But he sends out a weekly email that he calls his transformational week, and then he numbers it for the week, right? So I think we're up to whatever it is now, 28 or whatever it is, of how many weeks they've been going through this. But he intentionally started to send the message, we are going to approach this as an opportunity for transformation. We cannot afford to have the mindset of just a transactional mindset. It needs to be transformational. And it's been interesting to watch them work. They had a major contract or potential for a major contract with a federal agency. Huge contract if they could get it. They were bidding on it. And it would mean a big deal to them. And then COVID hit. So the traditional way that they approached making these proposals and bidding on these projects wasn't possible. They just couldn't get it done the traditional way because they weren't meeting face to face, even with each other, the team that was working on it. So they were forced into using technology like we all have, like this Zoom thing here, and other ways of actually collaborating to get the proposal submitted on time and to get it created, right? And in doing that, it opened doors. They discovered new ways to actually interact and collaborate with each other and actually involve more people from their team, from their organization on this big project. And it was a major success. They wouldn't have done it that way had they continued to do things the normal way. And so this thought of, people, leaders especially, being transformational in this process and looking at working on the organization, not just showing up for work in the organization, but actually together working on the new, as you mentioned, the vision of where we want to go and working through that disorder.
Well, so many of the changes I think that organizations are making, that schools are making, are ones that if we had been honest with ourselves, we should have been doing sooner.
Yeah, well, even at little old learning point. Yeah, absolutely.
And right. And I think one of the things that we want to take out of this, all of us, is I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm going to trust that inner. I just think we have this inner wisdom about things that we need to do, and to honor those and step forward with those. And frankly, Mark, when I look at the work that we've gotten to do, and that when I think about my own work with Learning Point or working with a coaching client, one of my favorite moments is when we ask them a question or present a concept and then give them the opportunity to apply what we're saying and say, okay, how does this apply to you? And what is something that you might do with this going forward? Mm. And the look of inner knowing is so clear. And oftentimes it's a look of inner knowing and an, oh, shoot, it does mean I need to have that conversation. I need to make this change. And yeah.
Yeah, we need to be honest with ourselves, right? It's not going to happen, or not going to happen in the right way, if we're not completely and truly honest with where we're at, where we're going, and what that inner wisdom or that inner voice is telling us. And prompted me, I want to ask you kind of a personal question. We didn't rehearse this one, so we can edit this out if we need to afterwards. But how I know I've had my own personal experience with this over the past 3 or 4 months, but have you experienced even a transformation in your home, in your, there's you and your husband, right? For the most part, you have family, you got kids, you got some grandkids, but I believe that you're in your household, it's you and Tom these days, right? Has this experience enabled you to transform in any way, just even at that level within the home, within your relationship?
Absolutely. I mean, I think hopefully it should start there, but yes, when this all started, I mean, Tom and I have a great communication. We've worked really hard and had a point in our, probably like all marriages, where we went, okay, there's more here for us. So we've done a lot of work to get to the point that we are. But early on, we began having discussions about what are we going to do with this time? And so a few of the things that have happened, some of them are so little, but so big, is that we now sit down together at the dinner table and have dinner at the table together. And we haven't done that since we've been here. We either sit on the couch or we'd sit and watch a Netflix or whatever. We sit and talk, and after 25 years, I go, I've never heard that story from you before. So that's been one. And I think we've really taken on our physical health in a way that we haven't in the past, where we're really working at getting strong. Neither of us are spring chickens. I'm in my late 60s and he's in his early 70s, and we have really upped that. And all of a sudden discovered that, I don't really need a gym to do that. There's a lot that I can do without that. We've reduced our consumption of the news in a really good way. So we're doing it thoughtfully and staying informed. But I don't know about you, but this is not a great time to be just constantly absorbing news.
Right. To be fed by negativism every day, constantly over and over again.
And I think it has caused us to really take stock of the fragility of life and recognize in a much more mindful way the blessing of every day and being aware of that. I have a little ritual that I go through each morning that actually my daughter Lauren, who you've met, started this. And she came up with this little hashtag, and it was hashtag wake up, appreciate, repeat. And she always says, this is my war, this is my life worth fighting for. And so every morning I come up with 3 things that I'm appreciative of and post it with that hashtag. And so that's been transformative in waking up first thing in the morning and saying, okay, what do I appreciate today? So those are just, I think, some of the things that have happened within our home and have had us have an even closer, better relationship, and letting go of the things that are superfluous and really spending our time. In the time that I have left, which hopefully is a long time, I really want to be part of we both do want to be part of making a better world. And this time has really, I think, brought that to the forefront. And a person that I follow, her name is Suzanne Stabile. She's the co-author of a book that I think I had you buy about the Enneagram, which has been quite a
right here on my desk. I haven't read it yet, but it's on my desk. Okay, so
she has this question, and it is, what is mine to do? When she gets up in the morning, and even on a bigger perspective, is what is mine to do? And I think in this time of transformation, we can't all address all of the problems that are out there. But if every one of us was willing to say, what is mine to do? And then we just went and did that, there'd be a lot of good transformation going on.
Yeah, I love that. That is excellent. You know that when we coach management teams and managers, one of the practices that we like to suggest or recommend that they do is to create a weekly plan. And on that plan, for them to list out the 3 things that they most want to accomplish or need to accomplish the following week. And at first, they just will often list things that are kind of just the getting through the week, you know, kind of, again, transactional type things, not transformational things. And so we try to encourage them to list the things that you transformationally want to achieve next week about yourself or about your team, about your organization, which I think falls in line with that counsel that you talked about, is what is mine to do this week? I think that's the biggest, you know, we get asked oftentimes, well, what do you suggest? What ideas do you have? What are you hearing? What's the next best thing to be thinking about? Man, I think that this transformational, having a transformational mindset as a leader, as opposed to a transactional mindset, is so important. And we use those words often so they could become a buzzword, but can you just share your thoughts on the difference, if you would, between transactional and transformational? What comes to mind when
transactional? You sort of said it, but it's just getting stuff done. It's checking things off the list. And I think, honestly, that's a distraction. If I can be busy doing something productive, I don't have to think about this really important stuff over here that's going to require more of me. And transaction doesn't deepen relationship. It doesn't increase trust. There are things we have to do that are transactional. We have to do them well so that people trust. But transformation has to do, I think, with pulling back and looking at the bigger picture, and being willing to go in where angels fear to tread sometimes. And in fact, you just made me think of something, that when it comes to this order, disorder, reorder, and this invitation, sometimes those are chosen. We take a new job, we decide to go a new direction, we retire, we make a choice.
we move to a better house, you know?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We leave, we start a marriage, there are all those kinds of choices. Not that those are easy choices to make, but other times disorder is thrust upon us. There is no choice. And right now there's no choice.
Yeah.
So one of the skills that people, especially who are in leadership positions, should be developing are the skills of embracing and welcoming transformation and knowing how to do that. And so it's creating opportunities for transformation. And every single day, if we were willing to look for it, we would have the opportunity to move from order to disorder to reorder, even in little ways. I was having a conversation with somebody the other day who was, it was a sort of a coaching call, and they used the word something like, I was afraid to ask the question because I knew it might get uncomfortable, but I asked it anyway, and here's what came out of it that was so important and big. And transformation and moving from order to a better reorder doesn't happen not only without mess, but without discomfort. So we need to get comfortable with discomfort. It's having that next conversation. It's having the conversation we don't want to have. It's asking the hard questions.
Yeah, that disorder part, I remember when I was, I think, 12 or 13, my father made a choice. He had this vision of how we were going to remodel the one half of our house, right? The dining room area and the living room area. And he had the vision, but the rest of us, I don't even remember being involved in the vision. I wasn't old enough to even be a part of it, but I experienced the disorder because for several months, even though his vision stayed intact, disorder was there for several months where we had chrome velour wallpaper still up, next to new oak cabinetry and stuff like that. I mean, I don't remember for sure if that's how it was, but I remember for several months, even through the winter months, there was a hole in the wall to the outside of the house that was covered with tarp. But if you were angled just right, you could see the grass outside through that hole, and it was there. So things were a mess. It was not good, but his vision came through, because when it was done, it was much better than it was before. I thought of that when you said, a lot of these things we make the choice, and when we choose, it's still hard work. There's still the Uhaul experience, as I like to call it, right? It's still hard work. But something's different right now in that many people are experiencing the need to transform or change because it's forced on us, right? Whether it be work, financially revamping what we're doing, those kinds of things, even relationships because of the restrictions and COVID and travel and everything that goes along with that. So finding that peace somehow, that inner voice that tells you that maybe to lift up a little bit higher than ourselves and look at the bigger picture is really, really important, right?
I think that yes, it's really important. And the invitation to transformation in that kind of threshold moment, I don't know why, but my bigger ones tend to come with a voice. I mean, they do. I get this voice inside, and it's still, and it's small, and it's me, but it's not me. It feels bigger, but it always calls me beyond myself and my limitations, and that's how I recognize it. And so for some people, it's not a voice. It's an inkling. It's an intuition. It's that kind of pit in your stomach. But if we're paying attention one way or another, we will recognize the moment for what it is, because it wants us to recognize it, because it's always calling us to that beyond ourselves. And that's the invitation right now of where am I being called to next?
We are working with a management team in the utility industry, and they, I think, have done a great job of, as a team, the senior management team, the executive team, of together, unified, crafting the message that needs to constantly go to the workforce and in engaging the frontline leaders in partnering with them and sending this message. And one of the things that they have done that I think is brilliant is the CEO of this organization is visionary. He's looking out 6, 7, 10 years of where this organization will be and where they will be if they don't make these changes. And so they have this method now of attaching, they're calling it micro messages and macro messages, for any micro message, like, here's the new policy. Here's the new technology we're going to use in this type of a situation. Little transactional type stuff they call micro messages, but anytime they need to communicate or talk with their people about a micro message or item, they are to attach it to a macro message, which is a bigger picture, longer term. Here's where we're headed, so that it reinforces the vision and reminds people that, no, we can't just keep doing what we're doing. We're talking about this right now because this is where we're trying to get to.
Why? It's the why and
the why. Yeah.
But we need that in our own lives as well. We need people, and we find this so often, I think, when we are working directly with a coaching client, that we need people who can take more of a bird's eye view of our lives and remind us of how far we've come. Because when we are making changes and working at it, it's so easy to get not mired, but focused on what's right in front of us.
Yeah.
Recognize how far we've we've gone. Tom and I have been doing some hiking, some training hikes, and so many of the trails are so busy. We found one really nearby, and it's a logging road. Nobody's ever on it.
Mm.
And it's about almost 2 miles, and it's just straight uphill the whole time. I started to, there's a couple parts that are a little bit challenging, and we're always pushing ourselves. And so I've started counting 100 steps before I look up. But I think when we're going through transformation, if we can do that same thing, I'm not going to look up until I've done the following 5 steps, and then I'm going to look back. And also having people in our lives that really hold us accountable to how we're trying to change.
That's good. That I'll share with, I don't know if you knew this, but I had an experience just last week, similar to your trail experience, where I took my bike. It's not a fancy bike, but it's kind of a mountain bike. And you know how you can take your bike up the chairlift and then ride down? I did that like I knew what I was doing, right? No, I don't really know what I'm doing, but the first time they had beginner routes and they had intermediate routes. And so I took the beginner route, wise of me to do that, and it boosted my confidence. So the next time I took an intermediate route. And what I found, looking back, what I was doing, I was looking like maybe 1 foot or 2 feet in front of me, in front of the bike as it's going down the mountain on this trail. And I wasn't looking out ahead. And guess what? I have a nice tattoo on the side of my head, my elbow. You know, my bike didn't like what I was doing, so it threw me just like a bunking bronco. And I ended up in the dirt, scraped up. And I was talking to someone when I got down to the bottom because it was obvious what had happened to me. He was a younger guy and he was a mountain biker. And he says, yeah, you have to get to where you're looking both immediate, but then you're also looking out in front. You're anticipating what's coming up. And what had happened was there was a turn in the path that I wasn't even aware of. And so I didn't make that turn, right? And so I ended up in the ground. And I think that's kind of, maybe that's a technique that we could use for our personal lives and with our team, with our organization, is to look at the immediate, but don't get myopic in the immediate. Look out a little bit, but don't just look at, you need to concentrate and pay attention to both, right?
Yes, absolutely. I think when we're measuring progress towards a vision, if we check in too often, we can get discouraged because we haven't gotten as far as we wanted. And yet, if we don't look up, we miss the turn. So that's really good. I don't know what made me think about this, but it's a bit of a personal window into me. This was probably, I don't know, it was several years ago. So it was before this all happened. And the truth of the matter is, in our relationship here in this home, I'm the messier of the two, emotionally and all of that. I have bigger emotions. I get more defensive. And I don't know what I had done, but I had to apologize to Tom about something. And he really, I mean, he's so gracious with me. He said something like, you know, I've kind of gotten used to that. And I walked away with those words and went, okay, I don't want somebody that I care about to get used to that. And when it comes to transformation, those closest to us can really give us a window into some of the areas of our lives that need to be transformed. And in fact, that can be a great question for people to ask in the workplace. What could I do to become a better leader? You know, our friend David Barry that you mentioned, our responsibility, every single one of us, is to get up and do what we need to do every day in order to bring the best of what we have to offer. And people around us can give us a window of whether or not we're bringing the best that we have to offer. And if not, that's an opportunity for transformation right there.
You know, I know, Tom, your husband, I don't know how you can get more calm and steady than him. So the bar's pretty high if you're trying to beat that, you know. But it's good to have someone in your life that can help to, I guess, lovingly or for the right reasons, help you see some of the, you know, the nudges, help provide the nudges that you need in your life. And I'm thinking in terms of the workplace, another necessary thing when it comes to leadership with regard to transformation is that, you know, the people that we're leading, they probably don't have all of the tools, and they most likely don't have as big a picture as we do when it comes to the situation that we're trying to guide them through, right? So we need to be what's the word, empathetic or empathic of, have empathy for where they're at. I can't remember if it was Bill Bridges or someone that writes on change a lot, talks about the marathon effect of when you run marathons, which this will come as a surprise, but I don't really run too many marathons, but I know that those that run them, big marathons, the elite runners, the ones that can do it the best, get to start first. So they get to start first, but theoretically they run it faster too. They're way down the road before others are just getting started. And so this idea of the marathon effect is to kind of be patient, have empathy for the people, help bring them along, right? That help them through the transformation or through the change that's necessary here, which again requires that we step out of that transactional. It's one thing to say, okay, here's what we need to do. I sent out the memo, first A, B, C, you should have it. Look in your inbox, it's in there, go do it. And people need some nurturing. They need some cultivation when it comes to the transformation we're expecting of them.
What just came to mind was empathy. We need to empathize with them, then we need to equip them, and then we need to expect them to continue to move forward. So it's empathy, equip, expect, all three of those. We love these things that all start with the same letter, but that
it sounds like we started a book here, Molly. We could empathy, equip, and expect. Excellent. I love that.
It makes me think of Nordstrom. One of the greatest things I learned from them, I was back in the day when it was the older generation of Nordstrom guys, and when they would come for a visit, you always could tell that they were in the store. They were big, tall Norwegian guys, and everything was just so, but I watched who they spent their time with. And they didn't spend their time with the store managers and the merchandise managers and in the fancy offices. They were talking with the stock people in the back rooms, and they were talking with the salespeople on the front lines and saying, this is where we're going. What do we need to know that you see and deal with that we don't? So I think that's another thing that we need to do with the people that we're leading is say, you guys have to see things that we don't. What do we need to know? What are we missing? What are you afraid of? What are you excited about? What changes do we need to make? How are we making life harder? All those kinds of things. Starting at the bottom in a lot of ways, the people doing.
That's amazing. That's interesting. Let me ask you this, based on your experience and the people that you've worked with, if a leader, an individual in a leadership position is working to transform some aspect of their work life, some aspect of them personally in the context of their role, is it a good thing? Is it, or a not so good thing for them to be transparent and open with their team on what they're working on, what they're trying to improve or change in themselves?
Well, I have two mindsets about that, and I think both are applicable because I think you really need to look at the situation. I think that we have to share that with somebody. We need to hold ourselves accountable. These are the areas that this is a specific area that I'm wanting to change. It might be that I want to begin listening more and willing to get feedback that I might not want to hear. I'm really working on being better at that. And so there need to be some people that you let in on that who can help keep you, who can give you the feedback that you need. And in terms of sharing it with the whole team, I think the more transparent we can be, the better. And there might be times when it might not be safe to do that. I think we kind of have to pay attention to the actual situation and the people that are on our team and the environment. But we need to have somebody that we're sharing it with. And frankly, my own personal bent is that anybody that's in leadership, it's probably anybody that's a human being, should probably be working with somebody like a therapist or a spiritual director or a coach, something where they are having somebody help them become better. We don't do that easily on our own. And so, a coach, a counselor, an advisor, a mentor, a something. And starting with sharing it with them, and then I think it builds trust within a team if people know what the leader's working on. And if we're going to share it with them, then we have to be willing to let them mirror back to us how we're doing.
Yeah, and keep, provide us with that truth. I just thought of You mentioned David Barry, our mutual friend. And I did a real talk session with him not too long ago. And he was talking about the hard work of asking for truth from I'm using different words, but from your colleagues, from your team members. And that's not always easy to do. It can be scary to do that. Yeah, I guess it shouldn't be, right? It shouldn't be 100%. Here's what's wrong with me. Here's another thing that's wrong with me. I'm working on it. That would be very tiring to your team members. But of all the messaging and everything that you do, if all of that is textured with a few things, hey, I want you to know too that, I don't think that I've been doing this exactly as well as I could, and I want to work on this, and I am open to anything that you have to share with me on that. If you can help me improve this one area. If it's like 10%, 15%, 20% of your makeup, then that's probably not a bad thing, right?
I work with somebody he's kind of a coach for your soul, is what I call him. And he has this great question. If we've been talking about something and there's some silence, but he feels like there's more, he'll say, what are you not saying right now? So it's that thing that's in the thought bubble that we're kind of afraid to say. And that's the kind of courageous thinking we need to do if we truly want to transform.
I like that. Well, good. Anything else that we should talk about today, Molly?
What we would say to anybody who is listening to this and to our clients would be to say, we are really taking this invitation seriously to transformation and are finding our way through disorder and putting things back together differently. And we really invite you to come along on that adventure. We have got really important work to do, all of us. And so let's get going on it.
Yeah, this is definitely a time to discover some of those things about ourselves that are really positive things that have been overlooked or hidden, or we didn't really know about them. This is an opportunity for those things to come out. And in many ways, as I like the title that we put on this, transformation right now in many ways is more than just a good idea. We're kind of nudged into it. How we go through it is up to us. There are some choices in this for sure. Molly, thank you for your time. I can't think of anyone that I enjoy talking to about this stuff more than you. That's helpful. I've seen you work with teams and managers in doing this, and just the impact that it has. So we're going to have to do this again soon. Okay? Good luck to you up there on the base of Mount Adams. I know you're going to be circling the mountain here before too long, doing some outdoor stuff.
Yeah, well, this has been great, Mark. Thanks for making this conversation possible.
All right, we'll do it again. Thank you. Have a great weekend. Bye-bye.